Hello and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, got a good one here for you. So I've got a post here by Hedera and it's leading to an article which I will discuss with you guys, but let's just get into what's being said here in the post because I think you're going to want to hear this. So we have Equity Labs and their handle is EQTY Labs. And we've got a post here from Hedera in regards to them. So I'll go through it as follows. Equity Labs AI Integrity Suite is being evaluated in Accenture's AI lab in Brussels to see if the software could be scaled to serve the firm's thousands of clients, many of whom are in the Fortune 100. Responsible AI from Equity Lab, built on Hedera. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you something about Fortune 100 companies. So if you can't see my screen, we're talking about Apple, we're talking about Walmart, we're talking about Berkshire Hathaway, we're talking about Amazon, ExxonMobil, all these kind of companies. So if you've ever heard of the S&P 500, yeah, that's basically like the top 500 companies in America. For the Fortune 100 companies is the top 20% of the Fortune 500 companies. So you're talking about the top 20% within the S&P 500. So we're talking about very, very big entities here. So this is a big deal, guys. And I've got the article here that just goes into it in a bit more detail. But I'm just trying to show you guys this kind of thing. The type of companies that Hedera are working with and that they're trying to get their technology to be working for, these huge corporations. Man, as I've said, I look at Hedera and I just think it really has got a promising future. You know, when you just look at it fundamentally, it just looks like they're built to serve huge entities. And I can't see how that could be a bad thing, right? And it's not looking like there's anything that's concerning their growth or anything that's concerning the company. So it's not looking like they're failing at what they're trying to do. Everything is looking successful. So I'm very optimistic about Hedera's future. You know, definitely seeing stuff like this. But let's get into the article and then we can discuss this a little bit further. As more governments look at AI rules, Accenture tests software to help companies comply. The scoop. As global regulators increasingly scrutinize artificial intelligence, massive consulting firm Accenture is testing a startup's technology in what could become a standard method of complying with rules to ensure responsible and safe innovation. Los Angeles-based Equity Lab created a new method employing cryptography and blockchain to track the origins and characteristics of large language models and provide transparency on their inner workings, so companies and regulators can easily inspect them. The idea is to automatically examine the model as it is being created, rather than focus on its output. Quote, "What we're doing is creating certainty," unquote, "that a model works the way it was intended," said Equity Lab co-founder Jonathan Doughton. Quote, "Right now, we've done the first step, which is proving that this is possible," unquote. Equity Lab's AI Integrity Suite is being evaluated in Accenture's AI lab in Brussels to see if the software could be scaled to serve the firm's thousands of clients, many of whom are in Fortune 100. The work is being done as countries propose ways to address the promise and risks of AI. On Thursday, the US Commerce Department announced a consortium of more than 200 tech companies, academics and researchers that will advise the new government AI Safety Institute, which will develop, quote, "red team," unquote, testing standards and other guidelines directed by a White House executive order on AI last year. Quote, "Responsible AI is absolutely critical. It's on top of everyone's mind," unquote, said Brian Rich, Senior Managing Director for Accenture's Global AI Practice. Quote, "But how do you go from talking about responsible AI to actually delivering it?" Unquote. No more. Unlike other forms of machine learning, the mechanics of generative AI models can be murky. By the time many of these models are implemented at companies, they've been modified and fine-tuned, sometimes creating layers of complexity that can lead to compliance risks. The Data Provenance Initiative, for example, found that many implementations of generative AI models contain improperly licensed data that is difficult to track. Equity Lab hopes AI developers will use its software to create an immutable fingerprint of all of a model's components. Its software essentially tracks the different parts of an AI model as it's being developed, and turns the information into a cryptographic signature stored on a blockchain, making it theoretically impossible to tamper with. Equity said it chose blockchain technology despite its association with cryptocurrencies because it was the simplest and easiest method of keeping track of the records. The alternative, Doughton said, would be to use a government agency or a company to handle it, which would add cost and complexity. When others use an equity-registered model and possibly modify it, the technology continues to track additional layers of training or fine-tuning. Even benchmarks that measure a model's performance or its levels of potential bias or toxicity would be recorded. By the time a model is used by a company, it would ideally have an easily visible audit trail showing all of its characteristics according to the startup. A cryptographic signature could also be useful to companies that want to ensure they're getting what they pay for. Companies employing large language models often use third parties to implement the technology. Each day, employees might send hundreds or thousands of prompts querying the LLM. When those queries come back, companies want to know that the model they are paying for was actually used, instead of some cheaper or potentially less secure one. Equity says its software could automatically check for that, the way a security sockets layer certificate ensures an encrypted connection between a web server and a browser. As a proof of concept, Equity Labs built and trained its own large language model called Climate GPT, using its software to track each step. It plans to open source its technology, allowing any developer to use it for free, but is expected to sell its AI Integrity Suite as an enterprise product. Reed's view. The White House AI Executive Order and other regulations, including those proposed in Europe, make it seem like watchdogs see AI models as the kinds of products that can be inspected and stamped as either safe or unsafe, like a car or consumer gadget. In reality, large language models are like perpetual stew, with ingredients from many places constantly thrown in together. Also, the idea of using just one model is antiquated. For a single AI product, more models are increasingly being employed as developers glom together specially trained one. For a single AI product, more models are increasingly being. Also, the idea of using just one model is antiquated. For a single AI product, more models are increasingly being employed as developers glom together specially trained ones to carry out specific tasks. We're already likely approaching a place in which it will be difficult and time-consuming for companies to vet every AI model they use. That's why, in theory, Equity's idea makes sense. A cryptographic signature would allow developers to retain trade secrets while simultaneously offering some transparency into how the models were put together. For instance, Meta's Llama 2 model does not disclose the contents of the data that was used to train it. That's led to tension as the company faces lawsuits alleging it violated copyright law by including protected work in its training data. Let's say that Meta, in a purely hypothetical scenario, wanted to prove what a specific set of copyrighted work was not included in the data. Equity says it is developing a way that Meta could prove that without having to divulge the entire training set. Room for disagreement. The need for this kind of tracing of AI models stems from hasty government regulation, which may be misguided, argues Columbia law professor Tim Wu, a former Biden administration official. Quote, "The temptation to overreact is understandable. No one wants to be the clueless government official in a disaster movie who blithely waves off the early signs of a pending cataclysm. The White House is not wrong to want to standardize testing of AI and independent oversight of catastrophic risk. But the truth is that no one knows if any of these world-shattering developments will come to pass. Technological predictions are not like those of climate science, with a relatively limited number of parameters. Tech history is full of confident projections and, quote, inevitabilities, unquote, that never happened." Okay, so real deep stuff there, as you can tell, real deep stuff. But AI, as we've spoken before, is definitely something that's going to be huge. I really think that's going to be a massive thing in the future. We've already seen what ChatGPT can do. So this being united with crypto, as I've said before, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I do think a lot of companies are going to use AI in the future. I think once they understand how to use it properly, I think, yes, I said it before, a lot of jobs will go because AI will be able to do a lot of the things that the average person can do. So a lot of industries will get taken over with AI. I think that's inevitable. It's a shame because, you know, a lot of people will be out of careers and stuff like that, but this is the evolution of life, unfortunately. This is the way things are panning out. So I do think that's inevitable. I don't think that's something that's going to change or can be stopped. But again, we have to look at it from our perspective. Like, there's nothing that we can do to change these things. So we have to just embrace the change. And so when I look at what they're doing here in regards to adopting AI technology so that Fortune 100 companies can obviously utilize this technology, again, I think this is massive and it's being built on Hedera. So ultimately, it leads to value for us, right? And so let's just take out the downer side to it in terms of people losing jobs and stuff like that. It's positive in terms of us for an investment in HBAR, right? Because this is going to all add to HBAR's value. So, you know, in that sense, this is looking real good. This is looking very positive. I'll definitely keep an eye on this because I do want to see where this goes. But Fortune 100 companies, you're talking about the best of the best, the top of the top. So we really are talking about big companies here. And if they're using this type of technology, which is built on Hedera, it can only mean good things for HBAR. So very exciting stuff to see. But what do you guys think? HBAR being utilized by Equity Labs for AI technology learning. Do you like the sound of this? Do you think that this is something that will benefit the Fortune 100 companies if the technology is approved? Do you think this is something that would be good for HBAR's price? Or do you not agree with this? Is there anything that you've heard in this article that you don't like the sound of or gives you cause for concern? Or do you just not think that this is going to be good for HBAR's price overall long term? Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'd be interested to hear. Thank you very much for watching this. If you did like it, please remember to drop a comment, like, and subscribe. But until next time, take care.